Alright, you guys, we're back here at it again with another video. Hi. Hopefully you're doing good. I'm doing good. I'm excited for this video because we're going to be doing The Fly versus The Fly, the original from 1950 something, 58, I think. Wow, I'm not prepared. And the remake from 1986. So, The Fly versus The Fly. And there should be pictures up here. So, let's get into it. If you like videos like this, talking about movies, talking about, comparing entertainment, then definitely this is the channel for you. Subscribe down below. If you like this video by the end, also give it a thumbs up or give it a thumbs up right now if you're already intrigued. Let's get into how we're going to compare these movies and just which one should you be watching. Alright, you guys, first let's get into the basic information about both of these movies. Let's start with the original one. The Fly came out in 1958, and it was directed by Kurt Newman, and I'm looking at some notes if I'm looking down, and the genre it is considered is a horror sci-fi, although never mind, we'll get into that in a minute. It stars Al Hedison, Patricia Owens, and Vincent Price, who I've seen some movies with Vincent Price before. I really do enjoy him a lot. And yes, so it's directed by Kurt Newman. I think I already said that. Now, the basic premise of this movie is about a man who is a scientist or working on a scientific experiment, and he is working on transporting items from one place to another using these machines that he has built. And one of his experiments his trials goes wrong with this, and he ends up transporting himself with a fly, and chaos ensues when his genes or atoms get mixed up with this fly during the transmission process. Very interesting concept, first off, and then let's hop into the remake then, which has a similar concept, a similar storyline, pretty much the same. The only difference is in the original, this man is married with a child, and it's kind of like we're going back to view the story happen from the eyes of the wife, and she's telling the story as she's being investigated and by the police and her husband because of what happens due to him experimenting. Whereas in the remake, we're following the story like in time while it's happening, as he's experimenting, as he's showing his invention. And in this one, we're seeing a budding romance happen with the character. So this Fly remake came out in 1986. It stars Gina Davis, Jeff Goldblum, and John Getz. Gina Davis and Jeff Goldblum are the two main characters, and Jeff Goldblum plays the scientist who is experimenting on transporting things from one place to the other. He again does the experiment with items, and it is a success, but once he tries it on living things, it does not work as much. And then Gina Davis' character comes in. She's a reporter who's following him, and he shows her the invention. She wants to report on it, but he tells her to wait, and then it ends up that he invites her into it to kind of like study with or see with him, look with him, and she'll write a report as he's still testing it so that she'll publish it when he's ready to publish it or expose it to everyone else. And what ends up happening is that they end up falling in love, having this romance throughout this process. And so again, he does with the live subject, he tries to transport them from the one machine to the other. It does not work, but he ends up being successful with it. And then he decides, in a fit of kind of spur of the moment decision, to transport himself in the machine. And unfortunately, there was a fly in the machine, and the fly gets absorbed into him. So similar concept in both movies, similar premise. There is both romance in them in a sense, although one is with a man and his wife, and the other one is with this man and his girlfriend. That happens throughout the movie. And the remake is directed by David Cronenberg, who is very well known, at least I think so, in the horror community. So let's get into some of the comparisons for these movies. Now that we have all of the background information for these two movies, let's get into the comparisons. Now we're going into round one. Let's go. So first off, to compare, we're going to be looking at the characters. So in the original, I really enjoyed the family aspect of it. I thought that was nice. because we don't see that one it really in the remake. We're following the scientist, his wife, and his son, and also his brother. So in that sense, I really enjoyed that with the character dynamics that we saw in the original one. And the scientist maybe had a little bit more to lose here because he did have a wife and son, and we did see other part members of his family. Um, and I like that aspect of it. There was a slight romance in this one as well, but not as strong, I would say. At least not for me. I feel like there, of course, the wife and husband loved each other, and she was very much devastated when stuff started happening to him. But I feel like it was not as central to the plot. Kind of. I mean, it was, but I feel like there was a bit more stronger pull in the remake. Now, for the characters in the original, one thing I disliked was that while it was nice to see that kind of family aspect of there, and there were a lot more characters in the original than in the remake, I feel like there was some kind of interaction and dialogue that was just very dated. And obviously this movie came out in 1958. Obviously I wasn't alive in 1958 at all. So of course to me it's going to seem a bit dated, kind of the interactions they had, the dialogue, their relationships. It just was a bit of a disconnect for me, as well as just not much I feel like connection that I had with the characters as well. And but that's probably 100% due to the fact that it was made in the 50s, and because of the time disconnect from me to where I grew up and when this was made. There was just a different way of, number one, these actors had a different way of acting in the 50s that is different from what we see today, and of course dialogue and all those other things as well. In the remake, let's hop into the remake characters. What I really enjoyed, although it has less characters, I feel like we get more of a connection with the few characters that we do see. It really hones in on Jeff Goldblum and Gina Davis's characters, as well as John Getz, but really those two main characters. We really hone in on them. We really get to see their dynamic, their how they work together, how they fall in love. And because there's more focus on them, I feel like there's a better connection to those two characters to the audience. At least that's how I felt when I was watching it. They feel more like real people to me. Again, that might be because this one is more modern. I can maybe have more of a connection with it, but I just feel like it was done a little bit. The characters are a little bit more lifelike, if that makes sense. So there you go. As far as characters, I would have to say I'm leaning more towards the remake. That's just how it is. All right, you guys, now let's move on to round two, which is going to be the scare factor. Which of these movies gave me more of a fright, or if any at all? So let's start with the original again. I feel like what the original does really well is it really enhances kind of the mysterious elements of this movie. At first, we don't really know what the guy looks like after his experiment fails, because he's hidden for a large part of when she first discovers something has gone wrong. He has like this towel or cover over his face, and his hand is in his pocket, and so we don't really get to see it, and that adds an element of suspense to it that I feel was quite well done. And it was also shot in a way that when we were looking, when you don't see the monster, there's some sort of element of suspense, some sort of element of something sinister has happened, as well as when we were finally revealed to see what has happened to this scientist and how he has been affected from having to fly in the transporter machine with him. We see that he has changed into this sort of human creature hybrid, and the way that the wife reacts, it's quite frightening just from her own reaction. It makes you kind of like scared for her. So I feel like that was also an element or a point in the movie that I really enjoyed. The music also fits the atmosphere of what they were going for in certain parts, though I would say that I don't feel like it goes well overall. But one negative I have for this is that in parts of it, I just felt like I wasn't watching a horror movie. It definitely had those horror elements sometimes, and it definitely had those sci-fi elements, but at parts of it, I almost felt like I was watching like a family drama or family sitcom or something, in some areas of the movie where there's no horror happening. So that for me, I feel like could have been a bit different. We could have had some more going there. And yeah, it just felt like some areas were not as scary. There's also like pretty much no what would I say in this? Like, there's no like, you know, you don't always have to have kills in a horror movie, but there was definitely no like feeling of real danger for anyone, at least not that I feel like. So there was like nothing at stake for these characters except for the fact that one of them had turned into a human half fly hybrid. So let's move to the remake though, because I definitely feel like there were more elements of horror here and more like monster-esque elements here. This is definitely kind of like almost a horror sci-fi monster movie. Add that in there because there was that aspect of him sort of turning into this kind of human fly hybrid. And in the remake, I feel like they were really good with the makeup, that it was scary within itself. And I also like that they added in that he kind of slowly started to change his personality, almost going insane. Really, actually, yes, going insane because of the fact that he has absorbed a fly into his makeup, his genetics, and so he starts to go insane. And that for me was the difference between the original and the remake, because I felt like after he starts to kind of lose his humanity, that puts the other characters' lives at stake. And so there felt like more of there's something to lose in this one, and there was fear that you're feeling for the characters, their safety, especially Gina Davis's character. You start to feel scared for her. And so that's why I feel like the remake got it a little bit better with the scare factor. On this one, there was definitely a feeling of danger from the main guy, who we were following as kind of like our hero here, our protagonist, and he slowly turns into the villain because of his experiment, because of his invention. And so the effects of it caused him to become like our villain, become insane. And it's almost very tragic in both movies. That's also something that's really, really important. It is the kind of the tragedy of the story overall, which is really well done in both of them. You can definitely feel for both of the main female protagonists after they've lost someone they love. And so, yeah, off on a tangent. Also, the effects, like I said, the special effects in the remake are just so well done, which leads us into what we're going to do for round 3. But for round 2, I definitely say I'm giving the scare factor to the remake. Right, for round 3, we're going for the fly design. So, starting with the original, in this one, it's a bit different. And if you didn't already know, there's lots of spoilers within this. So we're spoiling here. But when we finally get to see the reveal of our main character that has been turned into like a fly human hybrid, we see that he has now the head of a fly, and his arm is kind of like the flies. What would you call them? They're like leg. What would you call that? I'm gonna call that antenna, whatever their leg or arm or whatever they are. And and it does look, it is kind of frightening when you first, it's not scary. What I'm saying, it is like shocking when you first see it, because you didn't know what he looked like. They did such a good job of hiding with a towel or the covering with his hand in his pocket, that when you finally see it, it is a bit of like, whoa, didn't know that was going to be like that. But at the same time, we're definitely seeing, again, this is a movie, a product of its time. It's just not a scary looking design. It's effective for what it is. For its time, I'm pretty sure it was maybe scary or disgusting or whatever. But seeing it now in 2021, not so much. It was pretty weird though, I will say that. It was definitely weird, and I think that's what they were able to get. And understandably, it might have been more scary for 1958. Another thing that I really did like in this one is that since the fly wasn't necessarily absorbed into him, they kind of switched parts, or atoms kind of switched over. We saw the fly near the end of the movie, and the fly had a white head, and the head ended up being the husband's head. So I found that kind of almost funny, because it was like a fly with a human head, and we see it. The effects are quite dated, but I like that they added that in. I thought that was neat. I thought it was kind of funny. Maybe it wasn't supposed to be funny, but it was. And I like that we saw how the fly ended up as well. For the remake, though, I have to say the makeup, prosthetic work, practical effects we see in this are impeccable. I mean, it is really, really good. We see his slow transformation from human. At first, he just has like enhanced strength and more agility, and he's agile and jumping from place to places. And then we start to slowly see the more disgusting changes on him. His skin changes. He's got like really scaly looking, he's slimy. Parts of his body, uh, parts of his body are falling off. And at one point that really struck me is when Gina Davis finally sees him and sees how much he changes, and he tells her, "I'm scared." We really see how it has affected the character as well. And one thing also that I will mention, in the original, the the husband doesn't speak after he gets transformed, so we don't really get to hear kind of his thoughts. He's typing everything because he can't speak because he has a fly head. Whereas I like that they changed that in the remake, because it was very interesting to see how he slowly went insane, and having him be a character that can talk makes it a lot more enjoyable, I feel like, for the audience. But the body horror in this was at times 10. It was A plus. It was top tier. It's amazing. It was really gross out moments, just gross out effects that were very effective. Like, I would be scared seeing that in real life, and totally grossed out watching it on screen. So, and then also, once he starts to, like, towards the end, he really transforms and he's like a giant fly. It looks believable. Like, this was once a human that has now slowly taken on the characteristics and physical traits of a fly. It just looks believable. Whereas in the original, I don't think as much. But again, we are talking about a difference in time. I don't think either design is bad, but I do prefer the remake, and that just because it's more advanced with that makeup and design and stuff. And again, it's almost unfair to kind of compare these with that element, but it is what it is. The remake, the design was better. So, fly design, the remake wins. Last round, round 4, is going to be the acting, and I think both movies had really good acting in it, actually. Like I said, I did connect more with the characters in the remake because I just feel like they felt more human, or maybe more connection because they're more modern characters. But I did definitely love seeing Vincent Price and the other actors as well in the original. They did a really good job overall. The wife, we're following her. Sometimes I found her, especially like after the fact, found her acting like after the fact that she found out her husband, well, okay, spoiler here again, her husband dies basically because they can't figure out a way to get him back uncrossed from this fly. And I found that she did so sorrow, but after like a few days she was just like, I killed him, oh well, this is what happened. And I was like, oh, that's a little strange. But overall, the acting in both movies was great. I have to say, I enjoyed both the acting in both movies, so solid for that. The kid acting, it was okay. It was okay. It wasn't the greatest. But then again, kid actors, it's a hit or miss sometimes. I enjoy most kid actors. It depends. No, I don't. But I think the acting was solid in both. There we go. Let's get into my overall thoughts and grades, as we've been comparing the original Fly from 1958 with the remake Fly from 1986. Huge time difference. And to be fair, it was made in 1958, so there's not going to be, especially for someone born in the 90s, that my brain, for me, it might be more accustomed to seeing the sort of style of filmmaking that we see in the 1986 movie. So for me, I definitely would rate that one a bit higher, because overall my enjoyment for it was just a little bit more. I really did enjoy the original though. I thought it was very solid, and being from a movie from 1958, I was still able to enjoy it and have a good time watching it. So for the original, I'm going to give that one a B minus. Still a really great movie. Did enjoy it. Definitely think that you should check it out if you've never seen the original, especially if you like the remake and have seen the remake. And for the remake, I'm going to give it an A minus. I really did enjoy it. I think it's one of the good ones for sure. So those are my grades and overall thoughts for these two movies. They're both worth checking out. I would say watch both if you've never seen either one of these, and check out my first time reactions to both of these movies that I've done here on my channel. But yes, this was the end for this video, you guys. Do you like this idea of comparing originals and remakes? I think next I'm either going to do I don't know, maybe I'll make it a surprise, but I'm definitely going to do another one for this month. So stay tuned to check that out. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. Subscribe down below so you can see my next remake versus original video and first time watch. And I will see you guys in the next video very, very soon. So stay safe. Adios.